Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another blues lesson. This one was actually requested in a comment left on one of my other videos by requested by Stephen Sparky, who was asking about how you play over the changes, particularly when you're a beginner and you only know the minor pentatonic scale. How do you approach those other chords, particularly the 4 chord? And I remember when I was just first learning and I knew the minor pentatonic scale, and I was all, I could play that, and when we were playing over the 1 chord, I was all good. But then when it moved to the 4 chord, I was always a little bit unsure of exactly what to play. So that's what I'm kind of going to approach in this lesson today. So the way this lesson is going to work, slightly different than usual. I'm going to teach you 3 different techniques that you can use to play over the different chord changes when you only know the minor pentatonic. So we're not going to stray into other scales and things. We're just going to keep with the minor pentatonic, and I'll show you 3 different ways you can approach that. Each of these 3 techniques has got an example with it, and I'll break down the different licks and show you those one by one as well. So our chord progression for all these examples is just a straight G blues. So it's the G, C, and a D7 chord. And the backing track and the tab will be available as well, so see the details in the description as well. So the first technique is, if you imagine when you're on that that G minor pentatonic, I'll just play the scale for you. It's really important to know which are the root notes in there. So we got this one here, we got this one here, and we got that one there. We might also slide that one into there as well. So those are the root notes. So those are the notes that we're going to spend the most time on. That's where we go to rest. So we'll play a lick, and the lick might dance around some other notes, but then when we come to rest, when we end the lick, or we just want to rest on a note for a while, it's always going to be one of those root notes. That's a good tip to making good sounding licks when you're just starting out. Just rest on the root note. So this first technique is all about moving the root note. So we're going to keep that same pattern, those same fingerings, but when we go to the 4 chord, instead of this note being our root, we're going to imagine this note's our root. So we're still going to play the same fingerings, but when we play a lick, instead of resting on this note here, we're going to rest on this one here. Now when we go back to our 1 chord, we can just go back to our main root. And then when we get to the 5 chord, we basically do the same thing again. We make this note here our new kind of temporary home. Then we make this note here our new temporary home. And then we go back to our main root note. So there, the underlying chord changes will be that D, to that C, back to the G. So you should be able to hear the chord changes just in the licks, because I'm resting on the what is essentially the root note of the underlying chord. Okay, so that's the technique. What I'll do now is I'll show you an example, and then I'll pull the example apart and show you the actual licks. Okay, so here's example 1. So what you just heard there was example 1. Now what I will say is that all 3 examples start with me playing the same 4 licks over the 1 chord. So I'll just show you those quickly to start. I'll put tab on the screen. But lick 1 goes like this. Nice and slow. Okay, so that's just using box position 1 and just moving in, ending on this root note up here, which is actually taken from box position 2 of that minor pentatonic. Okay, so that's lick 1, and again you'll notice ending the lick on that note there, which is the root note. That's a G, and we're in the key of G. Okay, lick 2 now goes like this. Okay, and again, nice and slow. Again, we're ending by resting on that root note. Okay, lick 3 now goes like this. Nice and slow. Nice and slow. And again, you'll notice resting on the root note. Lick 4 now like this. And again, nice and slow. And again, resting on the root note. So they're the 4 licks that I play over every G chord in all of the 3 examples I'm going to show you. So lick 5 now is where we move to the 4 chord. We're going to be playing over the C, and the lick goes like this. Again, notice resting now on the C note instead of the G note. So fret 5 on the G string. Again, nice and slow. Okay, and lick 6 now goes like this. Okay, and nice and slow. And what we're doing here, again, highlighting that C note, targeting that 5th fret on the G string, but then at the end of this lick, this is where we move back to the G chord, so I end the lick with this little figure. So there, both this note here and this note here are G, so that's the root note, so I've moved back to that 1 chord now. Okay, lick 7 now comes in when we get to the D chord, and it goes like this. Nice and slow. Again, you'll notice anchoring off that D note, 3rd fret B string. That's where that's the root of the underlying chord. And then we get to lick 8, and lick 8 now is over the C chord. So again, it's the C chord moving back to the root note. Nice and slow. So when you listen to example 1, here where it chord changes, and so we stop targeting that C and we start targeting the G. So that was example 1 where we're actually targeting resting on the root note of the underlying chord. So that's the first technique. Second technique now is where we keep our G minor pentatonic fingering, what we've got here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to shift that all the way up to where C minor pentatonic would be. And we're going to play the same fingering just in a different place on the fretboard for the 4 chord, and then up to the 10th fret for D when we're going to the D7 chord. Okay, it's way simpler than it sounds. You basically just play everything that you'd normally play over the minor pentatonic here, and then just shift it up so that you play the same licks but in a different place on the neck. Because the same idea as exercise 1 a little bit, the fact that the underlying chords moved, so we're going to move as well. 2 uses the same 4 licks over the G chord that exercise 1 used, so I won't bother showing you those again. What we're going to do is we're going to pick up the lick from when we move to the C chord. Okay, so this is going to be lick 9, and lick 9 goes like this. Nice and slow. So you should see that comes from this minor pentatonic shape here. So same shape, just moved up to the C position. So that was lick 9. Lick 10 also plays over the C chord, and lick 10 goes like this. And I'll do it nice and slow. Okay, and then we go back to the G chord. And then the lesson kind of picks up again once we hit to that D chord. So what I'll do now is I'll show you lick 11 followed immediately by lick 12, and it goes like this. Okay, and so what you're seeing is the same lick played twice. The only difference is we've moved down 2 frets. So nice and slow, this is lick 11. And then we play lick 12. Same fingering, just that we're moving down 2 frets because the chord progression has moved from C to D. Sorry, from D to C. So lick 11 followed by 12 really slowly. And then we're back to our 1 chord, our G chord. So the third technique now is actually only applicable for the C chord. And this is a little bit more advanced because this is the first time we're actually going to alter the scale. So we're only going to change 1 note. On our B string, we're going to bring, instead of the playing on the B string, the 3rd and the 6th fret, we're going to play the 3rd and the 5th fret. Okay, so I'll play just from 5th fret on the D string, kind of up the scale and back down. And I'll do it once where I'm playing the regular pentatonic, and then the second time where I've changed this 1 note. So it goes like this. Okay, so all I've done is I've just shifted this 1 note from here to here. And the reason for doing this is that if you imagine a C7 chord here, you'll see it includes that note there, 5th fret B string. Okay, but our G7 chord includes this note here, 6th fret G string, B string. So 1 chord contains this note, the C chord contains this note. So by just moving this 1 note in our scale, what we're doing is we're adjusting our scale so that it sounds, it fits better with the underlying chord. Okay, the best way to understand this is to actually hear an example. So what I'll do is, here's an example, and then I'll break it down and show you the licks one by one. So they heard me playing a whole 12 bar using this, and what I'll do now is I'll break down those licks that revolve around the C chord, because as you'd have heard, the licks over the G chord are basically the same as what you'd seen in the previous examples. Okay, so this is going to be lick 13, and it's going to go like this. Nice and slow. So you'll see we're also borrowing that idea from example 1, where we're coming to rest on the C note here. Okay, yeah. Lick 14 now is going to see us stay on that C chord and then move back to the root note, to the G. And it goes like this. Okay, and again, nice and slow. So the only tricky bit in that is that what I'm doing is I'm deliberately rolling between the 5th fret on the G string and the B string. And that's because those are those notes that's in the underlying C chord. And those last 3 notes are just to indicate that we're back to the root note, to the G. So lick 15 now is going to cover moving from the D chord to the C chord and back to the G chord. Okay, and it's going to go like this. Okay, I'll do it nice and slow. So there we go, that's all 15 licks. Simple ideas for playing over the chord changes when really you only want to stay within minor pentatonic or a variation on minor pentatonic. Example 1, changing your root note effectively. Example 2, actually shifting the whole scale up to a different position on the neck. And example 3, which is just this, changing one note in the scale so that it harmonises better with the underlying C chord. I should say that that particular scale where we change that one note, I don't think it actually has a particular name. I think of it as a Dorian pentatonic. Really, that's kind of what it is, because it includes the natural 6 and the flat 3, and it's only 5 notes long. It's a scale that I actually learned from a Robin Ford tutorial. And he was citing that he got it from B.B. King, I think. And Robin Ford actually uses that particular scale over the 1 chord as well, which is quite interesting. But it fits really well over the 4 chord. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, please share the video, like it, hit subscribe, all of those things. And I'll see you again.